Jake wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked into downtown cafe. His work boots were covered in dust and his blue jeans had paint stains from the morning job. It was exactly 12:30 p.m., and he had only 30 minutes for lunch before heading back to the construction site. The small cafe was busy with office workers grabbing their afternoon coffee, and Jake felt a bit out of place among all the suits and fancy dresses. He stood in line, counting the crumpled $20 bills in his wallet. Jake always kept track of every penny these days. His daughter Emma was starting college next year, and every dollar mattered. His mother's medications were getting more expensive too, and as the only son, Jake carried that weight on his shoulders. But today was payday, so he decided to treat himself to a real coffee instead of the instant stuff he usually drank at work. In front of him stood a woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine. Her black dress was perfectly fitted, and her shoes probably cost more than Jake made in a week. Her hair was styled in a neat bun, and she carried a leather purse that screamed expensive. Everything about her said money and success. Jake figured she was probably some big-shot executive from one of the fancy offices nearby. The woman stepped up to the counter and smiled at the teenage cashier. "I'll have a large cappuccino with an extra shot, please," she said in a soft voice. Her accent was hard to place, maybe foreign. Jake thought. "That'll be $4.50, the cashier replied, already reaching for a cup. The woman opened her purse and pulled out a shiny credit card. She inserted it into the card reader and waited. After a few seconds, the machine made a beeping sound. The screen showed "declined" in red letters. "Oh, that's strange," the woman said, looking genuinely surprised. "Let me try again." She inserted the card a second time, pressing the buttons more carefully. Again, the machine beeped and showed the same message. The woman's cheeks turned slightly pink, and Jake could see she was getting embarrassed. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been older than 17, started tapping his fingers impatiently on the counter. "Ma'am, your card isn't working. Do you have another one?" "Yes, of course," the woman said quickly, digging through her purse. She pulled out another card, this one silver instead of gold. This one should work, but it didn't. The machine declined it too. By now, the line behind Jake was getting longer. He could hear people sighing and checking their phones. A few customers were looking at their watches and shaking their heads. "Look, lady, if you can't pay, you need to move aside," said the cashier, his voice getting louder. "There are other people waiting." The woman's face turned red now. She opened her purse wider and started searching through it desperately. Jake could see her hands shaking slightly as she looked for cash. She pulled out a few coins and some crumpled bills, counting them quietly. "I have $3.20, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I don't understand what's wrong with my cards. This has never happened before." The cashier rolled his eyes. "Well, you're still short. Next customer, please." The woman just stood there for a moment, looking lost and confused. She glanced back at the line of people behind her, all staring and waiting. Jake could see tears starting to form in her eyes, though she was trying hard not to cry. "I'm really sorry," she said to everyone behind her. I'll just go." Something inside Jake's chest tightened. He remembered being embarrassed about money before, especially when Emma was little and he was struggling to make ends meet after his wife left. He knew that feeling of standing in public with not enough cash, feeling like everyone was judging you. Rich or poor, nobody deserved to feel that shame. "Wait," Jake said, stepping forward. "Add her coffee to my order." The woman turned around, her eyes wide with surprise. "Oh no, you don't have to do that. I couldn't ask you to." "You're not asking," Jake said with a warm smile. "I'm offering." He looked at the cashier. "Give her the cappuccino and throw in one of those chocolate croissants too. She looks like she could use some sugar." "Sir, you really don't need to." The woman started to protest. "My mom always told me that coffee tastes better when you share it with someone," Jake said. "Consider it shared." He pulled out his 20 and handed it to the cashier. "And I'll take a regular coffee, black." The cashier, who had been rude just moments before, suddenly seemed embarrassed by his own behavior. "Coming right up," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. The woman looked like she might cry, but this time from gratitude instead of embarrassment. "I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I figure out what's wrong with my cards." "Don't worry about it," Jake said, waving his hand dismissively. "Everyone has tough days. I've been there myself." They moved to the side to wait for their drinks. The woman introduced herself as Victoria, and Jake told her his name. She seemed genuinely interested when he mentioned he worked in construction. "What kind of construction do you do?" she asked. "Mostly residential stuff. Small renovations, kitchen remodels, bathroom upgrades. Nothing too fancy," Jake replied. "I'm actually hoping to start my own company someday, but that's still a dream for now." "Dreams are important," Victoria said thoughtfully. "What's stopping you from starting it now?" Jake laughed, but not in a mean way. "Money, mostly. Starting a business takes capital, and I'm putting every extra penny toward my daughter's college fund. She's going to be the first person in our family to go to university. That's more important than my dreams right now." Victoria nodded slowly. "That's very admirable. Your daughter is lucky to have a father who cares so much about her future." "She's the best thing that ever happened to me," Jake said with pride. "Smart as a whip, that kid. She wants to be a doctor. Can you imagine? My little girl a doctor." The cashier called their names and Jake grabbed both drinks. He handed Victoria her cappuccino and the chocolate croissant. She accepted them gratefully, and they found a small table by the window. "I still feel terrible about this," Victoria said, taking a sip of her coffee. "I've never had my cards declined like that. I'll have to call the bank when I get back to the office." "These things happen," Jake assured her. "Technology isn't perfect. Last week my truck wouldn't start, and I thought I was broke down for good. Turned out it was just a loose wire." Victoria smiled for the first time since the card incident. "You're very kind. Most people would have just watched me struggle and moved on with their day." "Most people are good," Jake said. "They just get caught up in their own problems sometimes. We all need help once in a while." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes watching the busy street outside. Office workers hurried past with their phones pressed to their ears. Cars honked in the traffic. Life moved fast in the city, but inside the little cafe time seemed to slow down. "What about you?" Jake asked. "What kind of work do you do?" Victoria hesitated for just a moment before answering. "I work in business. Management, mostly. It's not as exciting as construction work, I'm sure." "All honest work is good work," Jake said. "As long as you're helping people somehow, right?" Victoria looked at him with an expression Jake couldn't quite read. It was like she was seeing something she hadn't expected to find. "You really believe that, don't you?" she asked. "Of course. We're all just trying to make it through life the best we can. Might as well help each other along the way." Victoria finished her cappuccino and carefully wrapped the remaining half of her croissant in a napkin. "I should get back to work, but first let me give you my business card. I might have some construction work coming up, and I'd love to get your information." She reached into her purse and pulled out a simple white business card. Jake noticed it didn't have much information on it, just her first name and a phone number. "I don't have fancy cards like that," Jake said, pulling out a wrinkled piece of paper from his wallet. He wrote his name and phone number on it. "But here's mine." Victoria took the paper like it was something precious. "Thank you, Jake. For the coffee, for the kindness, and for reminding me that there are still good people in the world." "There are more of us than you think," Jake said with a grin. "You just have to look for the ones covered in construction dust." Victoria laughed, a real laugh that lit up her whole face. "I'll remember that." As she walked toward the door, she turned back one more time. "Jake, thank you again. You have no idea how much this meant to me today." "Any time," Jake called back, already thinking about getting back to work. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness was about to change his life forever. Sometimes the most ordinary moments lead to the most extraordinary outcomes, and sometimes helping a stranger with their coffee bill is just the beginning of an incredible story. 3 days had passed since the coffee shop incident, and Jake was back to his usual routine. He woke up at 5:30, made coffee in his small kitchen, and checked on his mother before heading out to work. The construction site was a new residential project on the east side of town, and today they were working on the foundation. It was hard physical work, but Jake had always found satisfaction in building things that would last. Around noon, his phone buzzed. The number wasn't familiar, but Jake answered anyway. "Hello, is this Jake?" The voice was soft and familiar. "Yes, this is Jake. Who's calling?" "This is Victoria." "From the coffee shop the other day?" "You helped me when my cards weren't working." Jake smiled, wiping concrete dust from his hands. "Oh, hey, Victoria. How are you doing? Did you figure out what was wrong with your cards?" "I did, thank you. It was just a bank security issue. But I was calling because I meant what I said about having some construction work." Do you have time to meet and discuss it? Maybe over lunch? Jake looked at his watch. It was almost his lunch break anyway. Sure, I could meet you somewhere. Where did you have in mind? There's a small diner called Murphy's about 10 minutes from downtown. Do you know it? Jake knew the place well. It was where he and his co-workers often grabbed cheap meals when they were working in that area. Yeah, I know Murphy's. When were you thinking? Would today work? In about 30 minutes? Jake was surprised she wanted to meet so soon, but he needed the work. Business had been slow lately, and any extra income would help with the mounting bills. Sure, I can be there. When Jake arrived at Murphy's diner, he spotted Victoria immediately. She was sitting in a corner booth, but something was different about her today. Instead of the expensive dress and perfect hair from the coffee shop, she wore simple jeans and a plain white sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail, and she looked more relaxed, more approachable. You look different, Jake said as he slid into the booth across from her. Victoria laughed. I hope that's not a bad thing. I don't always dress like I'm going to a business meeting. No, it's good different. You look more normal, more like someone I could actually talk to. Is that how I came across before? Like someone you couldn't talk to? Jake felt his cheeks get warm. I didn't mean it like that. It's just you looked so put together, so professional. I figured you were some big-shot executive who wouldn't want to waste time with a construction guy. Victoria's expression became serious. Jake, can I ask you something? Do you really think that way? That someone's job or clothes determine whether they're worth talking to? The question caught Jake off guard. He thought about it while the waitress brought them menus and filled their coffee cups. Honestly, sometimes I do, Jake admitted. Not because I want to, but because that's usually how it works. Rich people stick with rich people. Working people stick with working people. It's just how the world is. But you helped me anyway, even though you thought I was different from you. Jake shrugged. That was different. You needed help. Doesn't matter who you are when you're standing there embarrassed and everyone's staring at you. Victoria nodded thoughtfully. Tell me about your family. You mentioned your daughter is going to college? Yeah, Amy. She's 17, senior year of high school. Smartest kid you've ever met. Jake's whole face lit up when he talked about his daughter. She works at the library after school and weekends, saves every penny for college. I keep telling her she doesn't need to work so hard, that I'll handle the money part, but she's stubborn like her old man. What does she want to study? Medicine. She wants to be a pediatrician. Can you believe that? My kid, who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment, wants to be a doctor for children. Jake shook his head in amazement. She volunteers at the children's hospital on Saturdays. Says she wants to help kids who don't have much, like we didn't have much when she was growing up. Victoria listened intently, asking questions about Amy's volunteer work and her plans for medical school. Jake found himself talking more than he usually did with strangers. There was something about Victoria that made him feel comfortable, like he could be honest without being judged. You mentioned your mother too, Victoria said. You take care of her? Yeah, she's got arthritis real bad and her heart isn't what it used to be. She raised me by herself after my dad left when I was 8. Worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. Now it's my turn to take care of her. That must be expensive, medical care for your mother and saving for your daughter's college. Jake laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You could say that. Some months I'm not sure how we're going to make it all work. But we do. We always do. What would you do if money wasn't an issue? If you could do anything you wanted? Jake thought about the question while he ate his sandwich. You mean like if I won the lottery or something? Sure, something like that. Honestly, I'd start that construction company I've been dreaming about. But not just any construction company. I'd want to build affordable housing for working families. Good quality homes that people like me could actually afford to buy. Jake's voice got more excited as he talked. You know what it's like to never own anything? To always be paying rent to someone else, never building equity, never having something that's really yours? Victoria shook her head. I can't say I do. It's hard. It makes you feel like you're always one step behind, always temporary. I'd want to build homes that regular people could buy and be proud of. Places where kids could grow up and feel stable. That's a beautiful dream, Victoria said quietly. Yeah, well, dreams are free. Making them happen costs money. Victoria leaned forward, her elbows on the table. Jake, can I ask you something else? What do you think makes someone successful? What makes someone rich? Jake wiped his hands on his napkin, thinking. I used to think it was just about money. Having a big house, fancy car, expensive clothes. But I don't know anymore. What changed your mind? Life, I guess. I've met people with lots of money who were miserable, and I've met people with almost nothing who seemed to have everything they needed. Jake looked out the window at the busy street. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, she's 83 years old, lives on Social Security, drives a car that's older than my daughter, but every Sunday she makes extra food and brings it to the families in our building who are struggling. She helps kids with their homework. She listens when people need someone to talk to. Victoria was listening so intently she had stopped eating entirely. Mrs. Chen never has much money left at the end of the month, Jake continued, but she's got something more valuable than money. She's got purpose. She makes other people's lives better. That makes her rich in a way that a bank account never could. So what makes someone truly wealthy in your opinion? Jake thought for a moment. Having enough to take care of the people you love, and having something left over to help others. Being able to sleep at night knowing you've done right by people. Being proud of how you earned what you have. He paused. And maybe most importantly, knowing that if you lost everything tomorrow, the people who matter would still be there with you. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than usual. You've given this a lot of thought. You think about money a lot when you don't have much of it. But not just about having more. You think about what it really means, what it's really for. And what is it for? Security for your family. The chance to help other people. The freedom to do work that matters to you instead of just work that pays the bills. Jake smiled. Pretty simple, really. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. She wrote something down and tore out the page. What's that? Jake asked. My thoughts about our conversation. I don't want to forget what you said. She folded the paper and put it back in her purse. Jake, I want to be honest with you about something. The construction work I mentioned. It's real, but it's bigger than I initially let on. I represent some people who are looking for a contractor they can trust completely. Someone with integrity. What kind of work are we talking about? Property renovations. Multiple buildings. It would be a long-term contract, good money, steady work for months. Jake felt his heart speed up. That kind of work could change everything for his family. What's the catch? Victoria smiled. No catch. But they want to meet with you first. Make sure you're the right fit for what they have in mind. When? Are you free tomorrow afternoon? Around 2 o'clock? Jake nodded quickly. Yeah, I can make that work. Where? Victoria wrote an address on another piece of paper. It's a downtown office building. Nothing fancy, just a meeting to discuss the details. As they prepared to leave the diner, Victoria turned to Jake one more time. Thank you for lunch and for the conversation. I learned a lot about you today. Same here, Jake said. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who wouldn't care about things like helping people or making a difference. Someone who only thought about money and success in the traditional way. Victoria smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. People aren't always what they seem to be, are they? No, Jake agreed. Sometimes they're better than they seem. As they parted ways in the parking lot, Jake felt hopeful for the first time in months. Maybe this was the break his family needed. Maybe things... Jake was mixing concrete when his phone rang. It was barely 8 in the morning, and he'd been at the job site for over an hour already. The number on the screen wasn't one he recognized, but it looked official somehow. All the digits lined up perfectly, like a business number. Hello, this is Jake, he answered, stepping away from the noise of the construction equipment. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. This is Patricia calling from Sterling and Associates. We're a law firm here in downtown. Jake felt his stomach drop. Law firms didn't call construction workers unless something was very wrong. Is everything okay? Is this about my mother? My daughter? Oh no, sir, nothing like that. I'm calling about a business opportunity. We have a client who specifically requested to meet with you regarding a potential construction contract. Jake was confused. I'm sorry, who gave you my name? I don't understand. A Ms. Victoria recommended you for this project. She spoke very highly of your character and work ethic. Relief washed over Jake. This was about the job Victoria had mentioned at the diner. Oh, okay. She did mention something about that. Wonderful. Would you be available to come in for a meeting today at 2 o'clock? We're located in the Hartwell building downtown, 32nd floor. Jake looked around at the construction site. His boss, Tony, was a reasonable guy, but asking for time off on short notice wasn't ideal. Still, this opportunity was too important to pass up. Yeah, I can be there. What should I bring? Resume references? Just yourself, Mr. Johnson. We have all the information we need. Oh, and you might want to dress nicely. This is quite an important meeting. After hanging up, Jake felt both excited and nervous. The 32nd floor of the Hartwell building? That was where the really successful people worked. He'd driven past that building hundreds of times but never imagined he'd have reason to go inside. He found Tony near the cement mixer and explained the situation. Tony raised an eyebrow but agreed to let Jake leave early. Must be some big job if lawyers are involved, Tony said. Good luck, Jake. You deserve a break. Jake drove home to clean up and change clothes. He only owned one decent outfit, a navy blue suit he'd bought years ago for court appearances during his divorce. It still fit mostly, though it was a bit tight around the shoulders from all the physical work he'd been doing. His mother was watching her morning shows when he came in. Why are you home so early, honey? She asked from her recliner. I have a job interview, Mom. A big one. Her face lit up. That's wonderful. What kind of job? Construction work, but apparently it's a major contract. They want to meet with me downtown. Well, you look very handsome in that suit. Very professional. She reached over and straightened his tie. I'm proud of you, Jake, no matter what happens today. The Hartwell building was even more impressive up close. Jake had to crane his neck to see the top of it. The lobby was all marble and glass with security guards in crisp uniforms. Jake felt completely out of place as he walked across the polished floor in his old dress shoes. I'm here to see Sterling and Associates, he told the security guard at the desk. 32nd floor. Elevators are to your right. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. Jake watched the numbers climb higher and higher, his nervousness growing with each floor. When the doors finally opened, he stepped into a hallway that looked like something from a movie. Everything was pristine white and chrome with expensive artwork on the walls. Mr. Johnson, a woman in a perfectly pressed business suit, approached him. I'm Patricia. We spoke on the phone. Yes, that's me. Right this way, please. Patricia led him down a long hallway lined with offices. Jake could see lawyers inside, all wearing expensive suits, talking on phones or typing on computers. Everyone looked busy and important. Here we are, Patricia said, opening a heavy wooden door. Conference room A, can I get you some water, coffee? Water would be great, thanks. Jake stepped into the conference room and felt his breath catch. The room was enormous, with windows that looked out over the entire city. A long mahogany table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs that probably cost more than Jake made in a month. 3 people were already seated at the table. 2 men in dark suits, both looking serious and official, and 1 woman with short gray hair who wore glasses and held a thick folder. Mr. Johnson, please have a seat, said one of the men. I'm Robert Sterling, senior partner here at the firm. Jake sat down carefully, afraid to scratch the expensive table with his watch. This is David Mitchell, our contract specialist, Sterling continued, gesturing to the other man. And this is Carol Hayes from our research department. They all shook hands, and Jake noticed how soft their hands were compared to his calloused ones. Now then, Sterling began, opening a folder in front of him. We understand that Victoria spoke with you about a construction opportunity. Yes, sir, though she didn't give me many details. That's because this is a rather unusual situation, said Mitchell. Our client has very specific requirements for this project. Carol Hayes opened her folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. Mr. Johnson, we've done some research on you. Your work history, your reputation in the community, your personal circumstances. Jake felt uncomfortable. You investigated me? Standard procedure, Sterling assured him. Our client is very particular about who they work with. They want to know about your character, your integrity. What did you find? Jake asked, not sure if he wanted to know the answer. Carol looked down at her papers. You've been working construction for 15 years. Never missed a payment on your rent. Never been arrested. You take care of your elderly mother and are saving money for your daughter's college education. Jake nodded. That's all true. You also paid a stranger's coffee bill 3 days ago, Mitchell added. Jake was surprised. How do you know about that? Our client was very impressed by that gesture, Sterling said. It confirmed what they suspected about your character. I'm sorry, but this is all very confusing, Jake said. What exactly is this job? And why does paying for someone's coffee matter? The 3 lawyers exchanged glances. Sterling cleared his throat. Mr. Johnson, our client is conducting what you might call a character assessment. They believe that how a person treats strangers, especially in difficult situations, reveals their true nature. So the coffee thing was, what, a test? In a manner of speaking, yes. Jake felt a mix of emotions. He was flattered that his kindness had been noticed, but also concerned that he'd been watched without knowing it. What kind of construction work are we talking about? He asked. Mitchell pulled out another set of papers. Multiple properties, residential and commercial renovations. The contract would be worth approximately $2.3 million over 18 months. Jake's mouth went dry. He had never heard numbers like that in his entire life. $3 million? He repeated. That's correct. Of course, you'd need to hire additional workers, rent equipment, purchase materials, but the profit margin would be substantial. Jake's head was spinning. That kind of money would change everything. Amy could go to any college she wanted. His mother could get the best medical care available. He could finally start his own company. There is one condition, Sterling continued. Our client wants to meet with you personally before finalizing anything. When? Right now, actually. They're on their way up. Jake felt his palms start to sweat. They're coming here now? Any moment, Carol said, checking her watch. Jake looked around the impressive conference room, at the lawyers with their expensive suits and serious expressions, at the papers spread across the table that represented more money than he'd ever imagined. He thought about Victoria and their conversation at the diner, about how she'd asked all those questions about success and integrity. Can I ask who your client is? Jake said. Before anyone could answer, there was a soft knock on the door. Patricia peeked her head in. Your client has arrived, she announced. Jake turned toward the door, expecting to see another lawyer or maybe a businessman in an expensive suit. Instead, someone familiar walked through the door, someone he never expected to see again. His world was about to be turned completely upside down, and Jake had absolutely no idea what was coming next. The simple construction worker who had paid for a stranger's coffee was about to discover that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the biggest changes in life. Jake's heart nearly stopped when Victoria walked through the conference room door. But this wasn't the same Victoria he'd met at the coffee shop or even the casual version from the diner. This Victoria wore a perfectly tailored black business suit that probably cost more than Jake made in 3 months. Her hair was styled professionally, and she carried herself with a confidence that commanded the entire room. Victoria, Jake said, standing up so quickly his chair rolled backward. What are you doing here? The 3 lawyers immediately stood as well, and Jake noticed how they looked at Victoria with complete respect, almost like she was royalty or something. Hello, Jake, Victoria said with a small smile. I think we need to talk. I don't understand, Jake said, looking back and forth between Victoria and the lawyers. Are you their client? Victoria walked to the head of the conference table and set down a leather briefcase that Jake hadn't noticed before. She looked different here, more powerful, more in control. It was like seeing a completely different person wearing Victoria's face. Jake, please sit down, she said gently. I have something important to tell you. Jake sat down slowly, his mind racing with questions. Victoria, what's going on? These lawyers said their client has been testing my character. Are you saying that was you? Victoria looked directly at him, and Jake could see something in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. It was sadness or maybe loneliness. Despite her expensive clothes and confident posture, there was something vulnerable about her expression. My full name is Victoria Chen Williams, she said quietly. I'm the CEO of Williams Industries. Jake had heard of Williams Industries. Everyone had. They owned shopping centers, office buildings, and apartment complexes all over the state. They were one of the biggest companies in the region. You're the CEO of Williams Industries? Jake repeated, feeling like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Yes, and for the past 6 months I've been conducting an experiment. An experiment? Victoria walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Jake, do you know what it's like to never know if people are being kind to you because they genuinely care, or because they want something from you? Jake shook his head. That wasn't a problem he'd ever had to worry about. When you have money, real money, people treat you differently, Victoria continued. They smile when they don't mean it. They agree with everything you say. They pretend to be your friend because they hope you'll give them something. She turned back to face Jake, and he could see tears starting to form in her eyes. 6 months ago, I was going through a very difficult time in my personal life. My husband had just left me for someone younger. Several people I thought were close friends turned out to only care about my money. I started to wonder if there were any genuinely good people left in the world. Robert Sterling, the senior lawyer, cleared his throat. Ms. Chen Williams came to us with an unusual request. She wanted to test whether ordinary people would show kindness to a stranger without expecting anything in return. So the coffee shop thing, Jake began, was a test, Victoria confirmed. But not just that one time. I've been doing this for 6 months, Jake. Different coffee shops, different restaurants, different stores. I would dress nicely but carry cards I knew wouldn't work. I'd wait to see what people would do when I couldn't pay. Jake felt a strange mix of emotions. He was hurt that he'd been deceived, but also curious about what she'd discovered. What happened? He asked. Victoria returned to her seat at the table. In 6 months of testing, do you know how many people offered to help me? I have no idea. 3 people. Out of probably 200 situations where I was clearly embarrassed and needed help, only 3 people stepped forward. Jake was shocked. Only 3? Most people just stood there and watched. Some got impatient and complained about the wait. A few even made rude comments about people who can't manage their money properly. Victoria's voice got quieter, but 3 people were different. What happened with the other 2? Victoria opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. The first was an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson. She paid for my groceries when my card was declined at the supermarket. When I tried to thank her properly later, I discovered she'd been doing volunteer work at food banks for 30 years. I made a donation to her favorite charity. And the second, a teenager named Chris. He paid for my bus fare when I didn't have exact change. Turned out he was saving money for his little sister's birthday present, but he helped me anyway. I made sure his sister got the best birthday party she'd ever had. Jake was beginning to understand. And I was the third. You were the third, Victoria confirmed. But you were different from the others, Jake. How? Victoria leaned forward, her expression becoming more intense. Mrs. Patterson and Chris, they helped me once, and that was it. But you sat down and talked with me. You shared your life, your dreams, your values. You treated me like a real person, not just someone to help and forget about. Jake remembered their conversation at the coffee shop, and then the longer one at Murphy's Diner. He'd enjoyed talking with Victoria. She'd seemed genuinely interested in what he had to say. The way you talked about your daughter, your mother, your dreams of helping other families, Victoria continued. The way you defined real success and true wealth. I knew I'd found someone special. But why test people like this? Why not just, I don't know, get to know people normally? Victoria was quiet for a moment before answering. Jake, when you're worth several $1 billion, people don't treat you normally. They see dollar signs instead of a person. They tell you what they think you want to hear instead of what they really believe. Several billion, Jake repeated weakly. The coffee shop was the first time in years that someone had been genuinely kind to me without knowing who I was. And our conversation at the diner was the first real conversation I'd had with someone in longer than I care to admit. David Mitchell, the contracts lawyer, opened his folder. Ms. Chen Williams was so impressed with you that she asked us to do a complete background check. Your work history, your reputation, your character references, everything checked out perfectly. You've never been in trouble with the law, Carol Hayes added. Your former employers all said you were honest and hardworking. Your neighbors speak highly of you. Your daughter's teachers say you're a devoted father, Victoria nodded. But more importantly, our conversations showed me who you really are inside. Your values, your priorities, the way you think about life and success and helping others. Jake felt overwhelmed. So this whole thing, the job offer, the lawyers, all of this, it's because I bought you a cup of coffee. It's because you saw someone who needed help and you helped them, even though you thought they were a stranger you'd never see again. It's because you did the right thing when no one was watching, when there was nothing in it for you. Victoria stood up and walked around the table to where Jake was sitting. Jake, I want to offer you that construction contract we discussed. $2.3 million over 18 months. But more than that, I want to offer you something else. What? A chance to make that dream you told me about come true. Building affordable housing for working families. I want to fund your company, Jake. I want to help you create something that will make a real difference in people's lives. Jake felt like he was dreaming. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. Why? He asked. Why would you do all this for me? Victoria's eyes filled with tears again, but this time she was smiling. Because in 6 months of looking for genuine kindness, you're the only person who reminded me that good people still exist. You gave me hope, Jake. You made me believe that there are still people in this world who care about others without expecting anything in return. She reached out and touched his shoulder gently. That cup of coffee you bought me? It was worth $4.50. But what it meant to me was priceless. You helped me remember what it feels like to trust people again. Jake looked around the conference room, at the lawyers with their serious expressions, at the papers spread across the table, at Victoria with tears in her eyes. His whole life was about to change, and it had all started with a simple act of kindness in a busy coffee shop. I don't know what to say, Jake whispered. Say yes, Victoria replied. Say yes and let's change some lives together. Jake thought about his daughter Amy, working nights at the library to save for college. He thought about his mother, struggling with her medical bills. He thought about all the families who needed decent, affordable housing. And he thought about Victoria, a woman so wealthy and powerful that she had to disguise herself just to find out if good people still existed. Yes, Jake said, his voice getting stronger. Yes, I'll do it. Victoria smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, Jake saw pure joy in her eyes. 6 months later, Jake stood in front of a brand-new construction site, watching his crew of 12 workers pour the foundation for another affordable housing project. The sign at the front of the property read Johnson Family Homes, Building Dreams, Creating Communities. He still couldn't believe it was real sometimes. The first few weeks after that meeting at Sterling and Associates had been overwhelming. Victoria had been true to her word about everything. The $2.3 million contract was just the beginning. She'd helped Jake set up his own construction company, complete with business loans, equipment, and a team of experienced workers who believed in his vision. Dad, you're going to be late for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Amy called from the passenger seat of Jake's new truck. She was home from college for the weekend, and Jake had never been prouder. She was thriving at the state university, studying pre-med just like she'd always dreamed. I'm coming, sweetheart, Jake said, taking one last look at the construction site. In just 6 months, Johnson Family Homes had completed 3 affordable housing developments, providing quality homes for over 60 families. Each house was built with the same care and attention Jake would want for his own family. Amy had changed too since that day at the law firm. The stress lines around her eyes had disappeared. She no longer worked nights at the library, though she still volunteered at the children's hospital on weekends. Her college tuition was fully paid, and she had a small scholarship fund that Victoria had quietly established to help other students from working families pursue medical careers. How's Grandma doing with her new physical therapist? Amy asked as they drove toward downtown. She loves her, Jake smiled. Says she's the first doctor who actually listens to her complaints, and the new medication is working great. Her arthritis pain is almost gone. Jake's mother now had access to the best medical care available. Victoria had arranged for her to see specialists who had developed a treatment plan that had dramatically improved her quality of life. More importantly, she no longer worried about the cost of her medications or medical visits. They pulled up to the community center where the ribbon-cutting ceremony was taking place. Jake had to park 2 blocks away because of all the cars. He was amazed at how many people had come to celebrate the completion of Riverside Commons, their latest affordable housing development. As they walked toward the crowd, Jake spotted Victoria near the temporary stage that had been set up. She was talking with the mayor and several other city officials. When she saw Jake approaching, she excused herself and walked over to meet him. There's the man of the hour, Victoria said, giving Jake a warm hug. Over the past 6 months, they had become genuine friends. Not business partners, not benefactor and recipient, but real friends who enjoyed each other's company and shared similar values. I still can't believe all these people came out for this, Jake said, looking at the crowd of families, city officials, and local business owners. Believe it, Jake. You've changed this community. These families have homes they can actually afford to buy, in a safe neighborhood with good schools. You've made dreams come true. Victoria looked different these days, too. She smiled more, laughed more easily, and seemed genuinely happy in a way that Jake suspected she hadn't been in years. She still ran Williams Industries, but she'd also started spending more time on charitable projects and community development. Ladies and gentlemen, If I could have your attention, the mayor announced from the small stage. We're here today to celebrate the completion of Riverside Commons, 30 beautiful, affordable homes for working families in our community. The crowd gathered closer to the stage. Jake could see some of the families who would be moving into the new houses. There was Mrs. Rodriguez, who cleaned offices downtown and was finally going to own her own home after years of renting. There was Tom, a mechanic who worked at the auto shop near Jake's old construction site, who would be able to give his 3 kids their own bedrooms for the first time. I want to invite Jake Johnson, founder of Johnson Family Homes, to say a few words, the mayor continued. Jake felt nervous as he walked up to the stage. Public speaking had never been his strong suit. He looked out at the crowd and saw Victoria nodding encouragingly. 6 months ago, I was just another construction worker trying to make ends meet. Jake began. I never imagined I'd be standing here today, talking about building dreams and creating communities. He paused, thinking about how to explain what had happened to him without revealing Victoria's secret experiment. Someone once told me that true wealth isn't about how much money you have in the bank. It's about having enough to take care of the people you love, and having something left over to help others. It's about being proud of how you earned what you have, and knowing that the people who matter would still be there with you even if you lost everything. Jake looked at Victoria, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Today, I feel truly wealthy, not because of the success of this business, but because we've been able to help 30 families achieve their dream of homeownership. Every house we build is constructed with the same care and quality that I would want for my own family. The crowd applauded, and Jake felt his confidence growing. But I didn't do this alone. I had help from someone who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Someone who saw potential in a simple construction worker who just tried to do the right thing. He gestured toward Victoria. Victoria Chen Williams didn't just give me a business opportunity. She gave me a chance to make a difference. And she taught me something important about kindness. Victoria looked surprised. They had agreed that Jake wouldn't mention her role publicly, but he felt it was important. She taught me that small acts of kindness can change everything. You never know when helping a stranger might change their life, or how it might change your own life in return. Jake thought back to that day in the coffee shop, when he'd paid for a stranger's cappuccino without knowing it would change everything. So I want to challenge everyone here today. Look for opportunities to help others. Pay for someone's coffee. Help carry someone's groceries. Listen when someone needs to talk. You never know what difference you might make. The crowd applauded loudly as Jake stepped down from the stage. Victoria met him at the bottom of the steps. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Thank you, Jake replied. For giving me a chance to build something meaningful. They walked together to the ceremonial ribbon stretched across the entrance to Riverside Commons. The mayor handed Jake a pair of large scissors. This is for all of us, Jake said, inviting Victoria to hold the scissors with him. Together, they cut the ribbon as the crowd cheered. Families began walking through the development, looking at their new homes with excitement and pride. Later that evening, Jake sat on his mother's front porch with Victoria, Amy, and his mom. They were sharing a simple dinner of sandwiches and watching the sunset. It had become a tradition over the past few months. Despite Victoria's wealth and busy schedule, she genuinely enjoyed these quiet family moments. Jake, I have some news, Victoria said as they finished eating. Good news or bad news? Jake asked. Good news. Great news, actually. The city council approved our proposal for the next development. Pine Valley Estates. 50 more affordable homes plus a community center and playground. Amy clapped her hands excitedly. Dad, that's amazing. Jake's mother reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm so proud of you, son. Your father would have been proud too. Jake felt overwhelmed with gratitude. In less than a year, his life had been completely transformed. But more importantly, he was making a real difference in other people's lives. Victoria, Jake said, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret that experiment you did? The testing people thing? Victoria thought about it for a moment. No, I don't regret it. It led me to you, to this friendship, to this work we're doing together. It reminded me that good people exist, and that kindness is still alive in the world. She looked at Jake's family, at the contentment on their faces, at the love they shared with each other and with her. That $4.50 cup of coffee changed both our lives, she continued. It reminded me what it feels like to trust people again, and it gave you the opportunity to build something that will help families for generations to come. As the sun set behind the trees, Jake thought about how strange life could be. One simple act of kindness had led to all of this. Victoria had found her faith in humanity restored, and Jake had found the chance to make his dreams come true. But the best part wasn't the money or the success. The best part was knowing that dozens of families now had safe, affordable homes. Children had their own bedrooms. Parents could build equity instead of just paying rent. Communities were being strengthened, one house at a time. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. Sometimes buying a stranger a cup of coffee can change 2 lives forever. And sometimes the kindness you show to others comes back to you in ways you never could have imagined.